yeah, with that segue, we might as well just get into another top five. I keep saying that, not top five. Another five in my top 100 list of movies of all time, my personal favorites. So, yeah. So the next five in my top 100. I like to say this before I go into this. Just a quick disclaimer. If you don't know anything about my channel, when I review a film, at the end of my review of said film, I either give the film that it has Mikey's movie magic or it doesn't. And just a quick disclaimer, all films that I run down on this list have the movie magic. They all have my movie magic. Obviously, they're my top 100 favorite films of all time. Obviously, all of them are going to be. And I'm not going to go into an in-depth review of each film. I'm just going to list them out, what I really like about it and why I, have it in the list and whether it's going to rise and fall in the future, because 100 films is a lot. And I've made this, I think I made this like maybe this list 5 years ago, and it's changed a lot. We're kind of getting down far into the list where it might really, these are kind of the mainstays, the main players, the main movies that are probably going to stay in my list. And we're getting that around 50, the number 50 film, which is kind of like, from there on, it's like all these films are going to be in my list, and probably they're going to stay where they're at, and they might jump a little bit, like 2 or 3 spots here and there, but we'll see. And also, this is just my opinion. This is my personal list of top 100. This is not objective fact. These are not the highest rated films or anything, even though I might discuss their rating because I find it a little bit interesting to see what Rotten Tomatoes has to say, even though they're probably wrong most of the time. But, yeah, this is just my opinion, and without further ado, let's just get right into it. So, we left off at number 60 from the last episode. So, with this one, number 60 is 2001: A Space Odyssey. That's right, Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey, made in 1968, which is insane how long ago that was. Holy shit, the effects still stand up. Now, you see, when you watch this film, you kind of understand why people think Stanley Kubrick helped fake the moon landing. You kind of see, like, why, because it's like, oh, dude, these effects are still really good. And this was made fucking 50 years ago almost, so kind of crazy. It definitely defines the term hard sci-fi, though. I mean, I still don't really understand the last 20 minutes, and I honestly don't think you're really supposed to without further watching. I mean, I don't even think Stanley Kubrick knows what the last 20 minutes of the film means. I remember reading an interview with Stanley, and he was asked, like, what was his opinion on, like, what did he think, like, what was he going for with the last 20 minutes, like, what does it mean? And then he just, like, redirected the question. He's like, well, what do you think it means, and that's just, it's just a really sign of a really great filmmaker, and that's just kind of what hard sci-fi is. It's just kind of like, you have to take shit out yourself. That's why hard sci-fi is so beloved. It's such a beloved genre, like Blade Runner, most recently Annihilation, 2001: A Space Odyssey, those really hard sci-fi films that kind of have a sense of ambiguity to them, stuff that is a little bit more personal, a little bit more emotional, even though it's surrounded in a future and a futuristic technology, and how, humans deal with the progression of technology. With that ambiguity, usually kind of, you kind of learn something about yourself when you watch a hard sci-fi film over and over again. You discover things and small things that kind of like hit you emotionally. You're like, oh shit, now I get it now. But this is a hard one. 2001: A Space Odyssey is it's a pretty hard one to understand, especially the last 20 minutes. You're just like, what the fuck is happening? But yeah, definitely check this one out if you haven't already. It's just, it's a feat of filmmaking prowess. I mean, just the effects are insane. So, with that, number 59, moving on to number 59, we have the Babadook. Duck. I'm sorry for that. That's, I'm sure you guys were just like, what the fuck, Mike? I'm listening to this on a podcast. Please stop destroying my eardrums. But, yeah. this one is an incredibly personal horror film for me. I'm looking at the Rotten Tomatoes score, and this kind of makes sense how it has a 98% tomato meter. So critics love this one, but it has a 72% audience score. Now, if you haven't seen this one, it's a mother and a son, and a mother's husband, the son's father, just recently passed away, I believe, from a car accident, and it's them kind of dealing with this, and they read like this children's book, and it's called The Babadook, and it kind of releases a sort of demon or monster, from this children's book, and they try to burning it, and it shows up again on their doorstep, and it's a really creepy and scary horror film on its own. But just know that this is a lot more than just a horror film. The Babadook is not a monster, it's a metaphor. The Babadook is a metaphor for grief and depression and loss. Whether I forget what the actual, you can't get rid of the Babadook. It's a metaphor for depression. It's just it's always gonna be there. Like that loss and that emptiness is always gonna be there, but it depends on like how you deal with it. And the ending of this film is absolutely wonderful, and it's exactly what it really encapsulates what, what loss and depression, like grief, is, and what it's really like for people. It's always there, and you have to like come in contact with it, and every once in a while, and deal with it every once in a while, and really let it kind of get out, and you have to like feed it and honestly take care of it every once in a while. But like as long as you acknowledge its existence, it doesn't really take over your life like it really has the potential to do, and it affects your relationships, especially the ones that you care about, your family members, and it could completely destroy your life like it almost does in this one. So I highly recommend The Babadook. It's one of the I think it's a modern horror classic, in my opinion. I know that a lot of people don't feel that. I've discussed a lot of people who have seen this who like a little bit more of the mainstream horror. They're like, it was fine. It was fine. But I think a lot of people who love films like I do and are a lot more, like to look a little bit deeper into films, this is definitely a horror movie for you, because I believe it's a lot more than just a horror movie. That's my opinion, though. So, number 58, moving on to number 58, we got, I don't know if this is the first Nolan film on here. I have to look back, but we have Christopher Nolan's Inception, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Ellen Page, Tom Hardy, all-star cast, Ken Watanabe, bruh, stop. But, one of the famous scores by Hans Zimmer, like popularized the whole the trailer, it popularized that whole aspect of movies. I would definitely say it's one of the most original films I've ever seen. It's one of the coolest films I've ever seen. A lot of people say this one's pretty fucking confusing. It's really not. They explicitly tell you the premise of the film and what exactly is going on throughout the film. Characters literally lay it out for you on a silver platter. So it's not that, confusing. It's not like 2001: A Space Odyssey where nothing is explained to you. So stop saying that Inception is confusing, because it's not. But it's amazing. So many feats of filmmaking. The whole revolving hallway fight scene is one of the most mind-blowing action scenes I've ever seen in a film. My hair is all fucked up. But Leonardo DiCaprio is amazing. The ending is so intense and crazy, also ambiguous at the end, but also, that question is like, oh, is he dreaming or isn't he? It's kind of like Blade Runner, where like the answer to that question doesn't fucking matter, because he accepts the reality of, his own reality. He accepts wherever he is, because, he sees his kids. Like he turns his back on the dreidel, and he just, goes and embraces his children. So he accepts the reality that he is currently in. And I think that's a really cool message, and a really awesome way to end the film. So yeah, moving on to another Christopher Nolan film, number 57, we have Memento, made in 2001. I want to say this is Christopher Nolan's second ever feature film. Another crazy, incredibly original film. I think it was the very first film that I saw where the narrative is told. It's not in reverse. It starts both at the beginning and the end. I mean, it shows you the way the film ends first, and then it goes back to the very beginning of the film, and then the ending is in the middle. It's in the middle, which is really crazy, and it's incredibly creative. It's very cool, very interesting way to tell a story. Very dark too, especially the end where I will say, it took me multiple viewings to really understand this one, but around the second, third viewing, you're like, oh shit, that's what he's doing, and he's accepted doing that every time. That's insane. That's really dark, and you're like, holy shit, this is a heavy film. Really good one, incredibly well done thriller. Keeps you on your toes for the entire runtime. I don't think it's very long either. I want to say it's below 2 hours, but definitely worth watching. Guy Pearce, what's her name? Carrie Ann Moss, Trinity herself. Just awesome. I love Carrie Ann Moss. I had the biggest crush on Carrie Ann Moss when she was in The Matrix. I was like, oh, she's so fucking hot. But yeah, Carrie Ann Moss is also really great in this, but Guy Pearce is, wow, it's probably his best performance. It's probably his best film of all time. Memento. If you haven't seen it, check this one out, especially if you're a Nolan fan. If you haven't checked this one out, definitely check this one out before you see Tenet in the middle of July. So now going down to our final film of our top 100 today, number 56. We have the second M. Night Shyamalan film on this list. I have Signs. That's right. I like Signs more than The Sixth Sense, guys. I know, crazy. But I think it's a lot more of an emotional, touching experience, Signs is, than The Sixth Sense, because, it's about a pastor who, lost his faith and lost his way and lost his path, and how the whole film is a film about having faith. And I'm not a religious guy, but even this one was very emotional to me, and just the way the film is written, the way it connects, and a lot of people really get angry about how stupid the twist is because of the water, but it works. It works because him having faith, the reason, water, water is the weakness of the aliens at the very end. Spoiler alert, sorry. But, because Bo, the daughter, always has this like weird thing of just like leaving, waters, around, because it's like, oh, it's dirty water. It's just like her thing, of him, his son having asthma, so like the poison doesn't get, into his lungs, oh, swing away, it connects all the way at the end. And I think it's a brilliantly written film, incredibly well constructed film. And I think Signs and Unbreakable are the two main reasons why, along with The Sixth Sense as well. I mean, I shouldn't forget The Sixth Sense, but is the reason why M. Night Shyamalan is, I believe, one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. I mean, say what you will about his shaky career, and like he's made some major stinkers, and I know that, but again, I want to acknowledge what people have done well in their lives rather than the bad things that they've done in their lives. I think that's a little bit more constructive and a little bit more positive, and I want this to be more of a positive show than a negative show, even though I just ranted in this episode, but that's kind of a rare thing, hopefully. But yeah, Signs is great. Also has one of the scariest moments I have ever seen in a film. That scene where Joaquin Phoenix's character is looking at the TV, and it's that like Hispanic like birthday party, and the aliens like hiding in the bushes, and then just like walks across that like little street. That is one of the most creepiest fucking scenes I have ever seen in a film. It is so scary. I remember when the first time I watched it, and I was like a young kid, I literally had nightmares. I was like, that is, I might have peed my pants a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, I might have peed my pants a little bit when I first saw that scene. It's incredibly scary, especially if you're not expecting it. So yeah, that's my next five. Again, I think all these films kind of are set in stone. I mean, depending on, I think maybe Inception might overtake Memento. Like that's probably the only change I think. But I think all these films are kind of good the way they are and kind of in the place in my list. So yeah. I mean, maybe they can to rise and fall. I mean, it's always a possibility, but I don't think so. I haven't really changed anything from here on in the past 5 years that much. Maybe one or two films kind of bleed in, and one or two films bleed out. I guess maybe we'll see. Hello, thanks for watching that clip of my episode of Nerd Out Sanctuary. I appreciate you watching. If you don't know, this is a video podcast about movies, TV, video games, other types of entertainment, comic books, novels, maybe occasionally. I don't know. I don't really read that much, but when I do, I want to talk about it. So yeah, just know that there's a lot more of these, and I appreciate you if you give me a like and subscribe and watch more. If you're just if you're watching here on YouTube, know that this is also a podcast, an audio podcast. I'm on Spotify, iTunes, and Google Play, so you can download my podcast episodes, listen to them while you're driving in the car, taking a shit, making dinner, doing your laundry, or whatever, when you're at work, when you're supposed to be working, but you're just kind of like, mindless, doing some mindless tasks while listening to my podcast. It's the shit. Hopefully you guys, get good recommendations out of me, and hope you guys keep enjoying my show. So yeah, thanks. And bye.